Hello, everybody. So today I wanted to talk about my workplace and just these kind of yellow post-its that I have right here. So these post-its, I guess I bought like this package. Here, let me show you my package. No pun intended. But anyway, in this package, I write down like notes from things, from ideas that I have, from or things I see. A lot of them are from like videos that I've seen or books that I've read. Like just when an idea for me is so great or so powerful, I'll write it down. Just and then I'll stick it on here, just kind of as a reminder, so I can either subconsciously or consciously like read it, right? So I'm gonna show you like around this wall. I'm gonna move the camera a little bit. I have my calendar right here, for instance. I'll let you guys know what that is in a little bit. I have Pancho over there, and then I have more post-its over there. So anyway, I'm gonna keep the camera like this so you can see me while I'm explaining some of these points. Okay, so let's start with this first one because I kind of wanted to make this video also for myself, so then in the future I can know what was on this wall, right? In case I move or I take these down eventually or whatever. So just kind of like go through them and kind of let you know what they were about, and in case you want to take this up in the future also as like a way of extending the knowledge or whatever. Okay, so this one says Nietzsche skeptic, which is the real or the regal. So that's kind of an explanation with real, because they would say that regal, or the people that used to be like the kings and the queens of the kingdoms back in the day, they were real, right? Supposedly because they were real, right? They were regal in this case. Versus existentialist, which is supposed to be to suffer or to be this real or unreal, I think. I don't know. Okay, I don't, a lot of these I'm not going to be able to explain them because I don't know what the hell I was thinking when I wrote them or what I was reading. I need context. But okay, anyway, I'm thinking this one is, oh, okay, well, if you're an existentialist is that person that's always questioning themselves about life. Who am I? What is my life? Well, it's kind of like a philosophical take, but it's deeper than that. It doesn't do those type of cliche questions like who am I? Where am I going? Just to kind of do them and then just leave them there. Like it will actually dive into it. And the skeptic, I think, is okay. So like in the Nausea, which is Sartre's book, there's this problem between the existentialists and the humanists, where the humanists basically think that everybody's good, right? Like everybody's a human, everybody can be good, but the existentialists are more critical, right? They don't think that about people. Even though to a certain extent you could say we are good, because I consider myself an existentialist too, but not just good for the sake of being good, right? Like you're good, but you have other factors, or maybe I said that wrong. Maybe it is good for the mere fact of being good, right? With no other intention. As where humanists, maybe they're good, but because they have another intention, right? Because they want to maybe persuade or influence other people. Anyway, in this case, it would be the existentialist versus the skeptics, where the skeptics, the existentialists are neither like a half glass half full, glass half empty people. The skeptics, as you know, are prone to be pessimists, so they're kind of like the glass half empty type of people. Whereas the existentialists are like, kind of like in the more poetic sense, like what is a glass? What is the water, right? How come the water stands still in the glass? Is the glass kind of like this limit of the water, right? Like you'll start to kind of like dig into it, like I said before. And the skeptic is just like, yeah, no, I'm missing water, right? If it's half full, just looking at what they're, or, where did my water go? It probably got stolen or something. I don't know. So I could see that, but actually I really don't know what that's about anymore. Here it says, just tell people that science is a belief, that it is wrong. Yeah, this one I actually made a. If you look me up on Google, you'll see that a comment that comes up in Google Images is actually this one meme where like this guy has like all these swords to his neck, and they're threatening him. And I think the post went something like this, like say something that will put you in this position. So then many people, I've seen a ton of these, but I think this was one of the first times I saw one of these. And many people post like there are only two genders, or or Santa Claus doesn't exist. I don't know, like some shit like that. But what I actually wrote was, yeah, it kind of like related to this. Science is just a belief. Science is the new dogma. Science is the new religion, just like religion was in the past, right? And like a ton of people, reacted to that post, to that comment of mine under that post, and were like, laughing. Most of them were laughing, and a lot of them were like, "Oh, you're stupid. You don't know anything. Um, there's this thing going around lately where they say, excuse me, where they say, like back in my day, they used to say, you got dropped on your head when you were a baby. And now they say, your mother didn't feed you folic acid or something like that. Because all of a sudden, science finds out that folic acid is necessary for the development of a baby, I think, for the brain or whatever. And now people use that as an insult, right? Like if they think you're stupid, they'll say, oh, you were deficient in folic acid when you were in your mama's like stomach or whatever. And it's like, whatever, man, you're just vomiting, you're just repeating what everybody else is saying. But it is a belief. Science is a belief. If you really think about it, it's not, I mean, it's a belief because it's the best we have so far, right? So the moment, let's say in 200, 300, 1,000 years, the moment something new comes, science is going to be relegated into this like ignorance thing, kind of like religion used to be like the thing like 1,000 years ago. And then now it's like relegated into like, if you're a believer, if you believe in God or religion or gods or whatever, you're ignorant, you're stupid, right? Now science is the new God. So that's kind of what I was, and I guess it hit a lot of people in the axioms, which is actually something I have written over here on the second one. Poke people in the axioms, one of my favorite phrases, I think, by Jordan Peterson. So what he was referring to, that is like hit people. An axiom is like it's like a core belief, right, that you have about something. So if you truly believe that people should be honest, right, and then you start to question that in people, you're poking them in the axioms, and people are gonna get super upset, right? They're gonna like, yeah, it's like you're messing with their God, basically, with their core beliefs, right? But you do it kind of like joking around, right? Like as a fun activity, like I'll poke you in the axioms, right? Okay, well, anyway, that's that. Dice visualiza, déjate ir. Okay, and then this one's like in Spanish. Déjate ir y empieza a hacer asociaciones libres sin analizarlas. Okay, so this one's about visualization. So visualization, as we all know, is a way to get what you want in the future. So if I want a house, I picture a house, right? Is it effective? I don't really think it's effective, but it's out there. And what I wrote here was actually like start to associate images. So you start to imagine things. And I guess this is kind of what the psychoanalyst would do, where they would have you like, for example, I think there's this activity called free writing. Maybe I feel like I've spoken a lot of this in the I'll do it on Monday section. But yeah, you just start writing whatever comes to your mind, right? Without any filters, without analyzing it, right? Like it's just flowing, 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 flowing. So the same thing can happen when you're imagining things. You start to imagine a house, but does it have, all of a sudden there's a crocodile in the pool of my house. There's a beach ball, right? I imagine like a diving board, I imagine, like a window, a big window, it's open, and like a TV inside of it, and I'm watching football with the guys or whatever, so you just like start associating whatever comes to your mind, and I guess that will help it. And then down here it says, oh, this one's interesting. The stripper puts on her audience by taking off her clothes, and the poet puts on his audience by stripping or dislocating the familiar rhythms and habits of expression. This is from Subliminal Seduction, the book, which I'm still reading, and it was really interesting because he made this analogy between strippers and poets. And I found that to be so interesting because I was like, yeah, I mean, when a poet's like describing something, like just the fact of you talking about something, like, okay, this is, you see this and you're just like, whatever. But if I tell you, like, this has a bunch of little pieces of paper which you write in them eventually, and then you can put this wherever you want because it has like a sticky side, or you can play with it, or make one of those things where you go like this, and the drawing changes or whatever. And you start to describe it, you start to strip it, right? Like when I hit you with it, you just see like a blob, right? Like a general thing, right? Which I don't know how that would be kind of associated with like a stripper, but I guess if you see a stripper with clothes on, right, it's kind of the same thing, because you just see the blob, the human blob, right, with clothes, and but as the stripper starts to strip, right, you start to see an arm, a leg, more skin or whatever. So I think poets do that when they describe, like the cliche things like the moon, the stars, love, whatever, or maybe other things like more unique things. Like I think I have a poem on my website, on the YouTube channel, on fuerza. Well, they're in Spanish, but it talks about force, right? About strength, about lightning, about weapons, about So I talk about all these things that have strength, right? Like the poem is called Strength. So yeah, I think that's kind of interesting. Okay, well, I already explained from the second one, poke people into axioms, break free from yourself. So break free from yourself is like, I don't remember where it came from, but you're limited to yourself basically the whole time that you're alive. So you have to. It's kind of like the free association. People talk about being free. I think like you have to travel or you have to go somewhere, and you really don't. All you have to do is like sit quietly and go inside your mind, and you can break free, right? So break free from like the persona that you have, right? That I'm supposed to be a certain way. Break free from that too, and let's see what comes out, right? Kind of interesting. Okay, this one says something is satisfaction. Oh, this is from Jordan Peterson's book. I think The Meaning of Belief, or The Architecture of Belief, or something like that. It's a good book. It has a lot of different things from it. It has a lot of ideas, but that's Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson's a Gemini, so he has like ideas from here, from there, whatever. And there's this part where he starts talking about how our actions are basically oriented towards satisfaction. And if it's not satisfaction, like immediate satisfaction, it's towards the promise of satisfaction, right? But there are also other things that, for example, like here it says promising, when our actions are oriented towards the promise of something satisfactory. That's the capacity. That's the capacity to sacrifice, or the capacity for sacrifice, which he talks about a lot, right? Like sacrifice is like the first, I think, maybe I'm saying this wrong, but I think he said something like sacrifice is in religion like the first act of religion, right? It's like the first religious act, like not being an animal and just I want my things right now, but like sacrificing towards, and maybe that's connected with like parents, like mother and father, how they sacrifice for their children. And maybe that's really where religion started, or who knows, right? Well, that would be interesting. But anyway, it's a quadrant because we have this part, which is like the satisfaction right now, or the promise of satisfaction. But then we have other actions which for example, when we do them in return, we get punished, right? So this says punishing or threatening, the threat of punishment, right? Which this clearly, I mean, if any of you have studied a little bit of psychology, like Watson or Skinner, right, with the operant or the classical operant or the, what's the other one? Yeah, like the whole operant idea, right? We have the positive reinforcement, which is this one here. Maybe I did it like I didn't do these like in order. I did these like randomly and I just kind of put them up. But this one says positive reinforcement, which we all know, right? Negative reinforcement. Well, I don't know if we all know, but okay. So what this, I think I've explained this, but what this basically says is that you can control other people through their, through this idea of satisfaction, right? So if you do something good, you get a piece of candy, and that's like positive reinforcement. Or if you do something bad, there's like the whole theory in there. I don't really remember it right now, but I do know is that there's positive reinforcement, like it says here, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, and negative punishment. And a lot of people it's funny because a lot of people get positive and negative confused, and they think, for example, that there's no positive punishment, right? They say, how can punishment be positive? But here they're using the terms strictly in a scientific like basis, and they say positive just means to add, right? So a positive punishment is like, because you did that, I'm gonna give you homework or I'm gonna give you chores, right? And it's like you're adding something, right? And negative punishment is like you're taking away something the person wants, right? Like if you did something bad, a negative punishment would be like taking away your video games or taking money off your paycheck because you've arrived late or something like that, right? So there's a whole interesting theory right there as to how to condition people, and that's where conditioning and behaviorism, that's what they're based on basically. All right, let's look at this one. Linear justice towards injustice, circular, cyclical, spiral. Okay, so this may have to do something with the dimensions. I don't really remember where I got it from, but I do know that linear is just like, one dimension, or things could be cyclical. Oh yeah, so like many, like for example, they say that history is cyclical, right? Like there's this idea, there's even an idea in law of how we go from, I think, I don't remember, I remember that we end in tyranny. There's like a positive and a negative, right? There's like for example, there's democratic, and then there's a bad democracy, which is, I don't remember the name of it. I don't think I have it here, but yeah, it has a name, right? So you, like for example, the tyrant is the bad version of like a good leader, or the oligarchy is I think it's a bad version of like a good group leader, right? Like sometimes you have the people in mass leading, sometimes you have small groups of people leading, and sometimes you have one leader leading, and both of them have like positive and negative characteristics, right? But anyway, so is it cyclical or is it lineal, right? Do things happen like from like it says here, from justice to injustice, or is it like justice and then injustice and then justice and then injustice? Or is it a spiral, which there's a theory of the spiral, which is like evolving. So it is cyclical. You do go through the same thing again, but the next time you go through it, it's in another level, right? And each time you go through it, you increase that level. That's kind of like the idea. Make people think you want something different than what you really want. Lead them in the wrong direction, okay? Excuse me. So that's an idea that will benefit you whenever you want to get something. So if you really want, I don't know, the headphones, you don't tell people you want the headphones because they're going to say, well, you can't have the headphones, right? So you tell people, I really want the speakers, right? And then people obviously, and especially if they're assholes, this works well with assholes. they'll say, yeah, you can't have the speakers. And then you say, oh, what a bummer, right? Like, can I have the headphones then? Come on, man, like give me something. And they'll be like, okay, yeah, here, have the headphones, right? So it's an idea to try to lead them in the wrong direction, but this can work on different levels, different magnitudes, right? And then here it says, what is your sacrifice, thing you want for thing you need? Oh, okay, so that's like a definition of Christian religion. Who sacrifices these? Okay, so a sacrifice is basically exchanging the thing you want for the thing you need. So if you say, I don't know, I really want pizza, but I need to go to work. So that's my need, and I need to sacrifice my wanting the pizza because I need to go and do my need, right? That's a bad example, but it kind of makes sense. Okay, I feel like I'm taking a long time going through these, so I'm just gonna go through them a little bit quicker. This one talks about entropy. So the idea here is that okay, this is like there's a lot of confusion, and I think I've explained this in some videos. Like between entropy is supposed to be chaos, right? But then there's a difference between um, order and disorder and simple things and complex things, right? So it says here, simple low entropy when it's orderly. And the example I read in the book or watched in a video was basically like, um, let's say you have, it's one way. I think this is when it's a messy room. Let's say your room is messy, right? So it's simple, low entropy, right? And then you clean it. No. It's the other way around. Let's say you have a clean room, right? So that's low entropy because it's orderly, right? There's low chaos. And then you clean it no. Sorry, I keep messing up. Okay, when it's simple low entropy, it's orderly, right? It's organized, and then you make a mess, right? You have a party, and there's chaos. It's dirty. When it's dirty, you have simple. It's simple, and I'll explain why in a moment. It's simple and there's high entropy because it's disorderly. Now, where does complex come into this? Complex is the means, right? When you go from orderly to disorderly, that medium is the complexity because you know if you're having a party, like things are going to be over here 1 second, then they're going to be over here, people are going to be moving, right? That's complex because it's moving. Simple is when nothing's moving, right? Okay, let's go to another one. This one says analogous math problem, two logos. I don't know what that means, but it's 3 plus 7 equals 3 plus 7, no, 3 plus 4 equals 7, and then 4 dots. 2 plus 6 equals 8. I don't really know what the hell that was about. Okay. And then repeat back people's first verbalization in question, complaint, orders. So you're saying, and you want them to say exactly. Yeah, this is a technique that I actually got told today not to do with like students. I don't know why, but you're supposed to repeat what the person just said at the end. So if they're like, and then they say, I believe in in speakers, right? And you say, oh, you believe in speakers, right? Or you even try to paraphrase everything the other person just said. But the objective, and this is from Chris Voss, you try to get them to say exactly, or that's right. Not you're right, but that's right, right? Because that means that they feel like you understood them, right? And then it says, no ideals, no goals, no joy. I think that's from Jordan Peterson. So if you don't have ideals, you don't have goals. And if you don't have goals, you're not happy. There's no joy. So you need ideals, you need you need meaning, you need direction, right? You need a goal to move towards. Ask, how am I supposed to do that? And have them confirm 3 times with what happens if it doesn't go through. So again, from Chris Ball's negotiation tactics. So this is when someone asks you to do something and you don't want them to do, or you're trying to negotiate something, just ask that question, like, how am I supposed to do that? Because that's a way of saying no, he explains, but it's not so direct as like no, right? Like it's actually putting the ball in the other person's court and saying, well, how am I supposed to do that? And then they'll help you out. If they help you out, then they, it opens up room for like negotiation. And ask them to confirm 3 times. Mm, excuse me. I think this one has to do with I think this is because people cannot lie more than 3 times or something like that. So like if you ask them for something and they'll be like, yeah, like whatever, but try to find ways to ask them the same question 3 times. And if they can't answer yes 3 times, then that means that something is up, right? Something like that. This one says something about the Trumps. I was gonna do like a video on the Trumps, like the family of Donald Trump, but I didn't end up doing it. And then it says, what you doubt about is probably the best, most genuine. What you doubt about. I think that was an idea I had, like, or not. I didn't have it. I think I got it from somewhere, like that. What you doubt, like let's say, like, what do you doubt in life? And you say, oh, I doubt the fact that people can be trusted, right? But maybe that's where no, no, no. It was something about your ideas. Like if you have a doubt on an idea, that's because that is where the most genuine, most juiciest part of like your mind is at, right? So that's where you want to go. So look for things that you doubt and expand on that, right? And then this one was when I was trying to do coding. It's a 2 to the 10th power is 1024. So then there's also a kilo. These are all bytes, and it goes from kilobyte to megabyte to gigabyte to terabyte to petabyte, right? And the idea, I think, is like one byte is 0 1, but byte bit, and then one byte byte is 8 bits, which is a byte. I don't know. I was supposed to like learn how to code and supposedly get a job doing that, but nah, that's kind of boring. Okay, then this one's the disorder of persistent ideas and delirios, which is actually what the abstracto section of in my YouTube channel is all about. So being paranoid and having these like grandeur ideas, right? Like, oh yeah, I'm better than everybody, which is actually a disorder, and I think I identify with it. So it's kind of like a way to get rid of those ideas, right? And then it says possible estresor, OCC, and wanting to beat me up. No idea what that is. And then I think this is from a test. It says histriónico, so I'm not sure what that's about. And then I made a video on that. La moral es ir en contra. Okay, let's look at this one. El trabajo del árbol. Ve a tus abuelos, bisabuelos. Oh yeah, so you can do like work on the tree, on the family tree, by looking at your grandparents and their parents and their parents, and and that will kind of help you figure out why you are the way you are. Are you breathing? When are you breathing? Okay, so that's like very meditative, right? Like it's like, okay, like stop. Are you breathing? And when are you breathing, right? Like how often are you conscious that you're doing it? For head work, people need to be able to compare and express casuality. Oh, this is from a book. I don't remember the title right now, but it's basically this guy who says all of like the mental faculties are manifested in the face. I think his theories were disproven, but it's interesting because he uses like big words like this, and he says for people, in order to do head work or to think, they need to be able to compare and also express causality, which is like, why did this happen? This happened because of this, right? A caused B, right? And also be able to compare, like I'm thinking in a simultaneous way also, like A happened because of B, but then X happened because of Y, and and then these affected this, and it says siendo útil a ti te serás útil al mundo. So if you're useful to yourself, then you'll be able to be useful to the world. Sin delirio no hay psicosis, alucinaciones. Oh, okay, and then this is something like you need to be delirious to have psychosis, right? Like delirium, I think, is like the basic element that needs to be in order for there to be like other like stronger disorders like schizophrenia, psychosis. And then we have hallucinations, alucinaciones, illusions, which in Spanish is actually like a nice way of saying like I have aspirations, right? Like mis ilusiones, like my dreams. And then desilusiones, which are in Spanish like saying my letdowns, right? Like my fails, like the things that I didn't achieve, right? Like my pipe dreams, I think, or my broken dreams. So I found that interesting how in Spanish is like alucinaciones, ilusiones, desilusiones. Okay, and then now we get a little bit with the Indian philosophy here. The fault is of the sufferer. I think this is a book, and it's basically like saying karmically, like expanding the consciousness into like different lives, even. Um, if you suffer, it's because it's your fault, right? So this goes to extremes where you're even saying like it wasn't my fault, I got hit or whatever by some guy, and then it's like, yeah, but that's because karmically it was like your fault, right? Because you're the one suffering. So it kind of gets justified in that sense. And then here it says whatever complicated account has been formed will certainly give a complicated result. So again, this has to do with like past lives. So if you've had a complicated account, which is like your track record, right? Then the result, or even the means in which you give the result, it's all going to be like complicated, right? And you will have to repay the old complications that had been formed, but make sure new ones are formed. I'm not sure if that's supposed to say make sure new ones are not formed, right? Because that's karma, right? And then there's like this difference between karma and dharma. Karma is that having to pay back, and dharma is, I don't remember, but you can look it up on the internet. Like it's probably there. Okay, dopamine, reward, predictability, expectancy, control, reinforcement. Okay, so I'm sure that's about some idea. Basically, dopamine gives you the reward, which gives you the predictability. And when you have predictability, you have expectancy. And when you have expectancy, you can have control over things. And when you have control, all you need to do is like reinforce that. So I'm not sure how dopamine gives you that, but yeah. And then habla de cosas externas para no ser tan intro. Oh yeah, so this is a tip for introverts. I think I made a video on this. So talk about external things, right? Like if you're so introverted, talk to people about like the cars on the street or cars in general, or like the cell phones, or like external things, like superficial things, we can say, the weather, right? Things like that. And then here we have like the zodiac thing, where it goes from well, we know from the beginning, you have 1 year in Aries, 1 year in Taurus, 1 year in Gemini until you turn 3, and then it's 2 years in Cancer, 2 years in Leo, and then 2 years in Virgo, right? When you turn 7, 7 to 9, and then it's 3 years in Libra from 9 to 12, and so on until you hit 30, and that ends Pisces, right? That ends the first cycle. The second cycle begins at 30, and I wrote this down because sometimes I see a lot of people that are like, I don't know, 59 or 66 or whatever, and I'm like, what's their zodiac like stage? Which stage are they in? So here it says 30 to 35 Aries, 35 to 40 Taurus, 40 to 45 Gemini, 45 to 51 Cancer, 51 to 57 Leo, 57 to 63 Virgo, 63 to 70 Libra, 70 to 77 Scorpio, 77 to 84 Sagittarius, 82 to 92 Capricorn, 92 to 100 Aquarius, and then finally 100 to 108 Pisces, right? So write that down if you want so you can have it. Okay, this one says X takes me to Y. And it's like, no, sir, you have it the other way around. So this is from Tony Robbins. So you're able to work on yourself. And if you're like, well, this causes this, right? Just think about it the other way, right? And Tony Robbins is a lot about that. Like just change your perspective, and you'll change the way you feel and the way you are, right? So in this case, if you say X leads to Y, just think about it backwards. No, it's actually that Y leads to X, right? And that will change your perspective. So it's kind of interesting. Either or arguments, which are the horn arguments. I think I've spoken on this a couple times. But yeah, these arguments are fallacies most of the time because they make you think that you either have A or B as an option when you really have more options, right? So they'll say, well, we can either watch TV or do homework. And people will be like, oh, and they'll feel like trapped, right? Like it's either A or B, but we can cook, we can run, we can go to the gym, whatever. Speak as if you are in a play, especially when emotional. Also, this is to control your emotions. So they say when you're feeling really angry or when you're feeling very emotional, pretend you're in a play, pretend you're like in a movie, right? So you're able to control your emotions. I guess that helps you control your emotions because then you'll be like, okay, so if I were angry or if I needed to act like I was angry about this situation right now, how would I do that? Like in front of a camera or with an audience or whatever. Never done it, but that might be useful. That's why I wrote it down. So this one says, test everything you think you know in a subtle way and analyze people's reactions. So this goes hand in hand with the disorder of delirium, the delirium disorder, or I think it's persistent ideas disorder. So it's like I think I'm right about this, right? And I live in my own little world, and I know I'm right because I've seen a couple things and I've read a couple things that confirm it, right? Which is the confirmation bias. But when I tell another person this, they immediately reject the idea or they go against it, right? And instead of me getting angry and all, closed up in my little shell, I should listen to the person and listen to their feedback and their insights, right? So it's like, you think you're right about that? You're very sure? Test it, right? Tell people about it. Go, face criticism, right? Like with that idea. Then there's ad astra per aspera. I was gonna look this up, but I think this is Latin. It has something to do with the stars. Knowledge or not of something can affect the result. No, you have to go into the realm of the not for students. I have no idea what that means, but I'm thinking that you have to like negate things, right? Knowledge or not of something can affect the result. Okay, so whether you know or you don't know something will ultimately affect how things will turn out, right? I think that's true. Action. Oh yeah, and this is from Jordan Peterson. He says that humans develop like this. We first acted, or through action, then imitation, then play, then ritual, then drama, then narrative, then myth, then religion, then philosophy, and now finally rationality. So this is from page 79 of Maps of Meaning. I think that was pretty cool. Okay, so then this one says, what do you need to increase your productivity? So this is a pretty interesting question. Like, just ask yourself, what do you need? Like, if I were to ask you, like, I'm God, I can give you whatever you want. What do you need so you can be more productive, right? And the answers you'll come up with, maybe even things that you can actually get, right? And then it says, tap into the source, overpowering what roles are overpowering. Okay, so the source, just that word, overpowering. I think I made a song about that. Like, there are things that are overpowering, overwhelming. What are those things, right? Like, there are a couple principles. This is from Robert Cialdini's book on influence, the psychology of influence and how to persuade people. He says some things are just overpowering, right? And it's thanks to culture and society and how we live that, like congruity, coherence, you have to be congruent and stuff like that, and you can use that in your favor. Truth is paradoxical. I made a video about that. And when negotiating, ask open-ended, calibrated questions to make the other person think they're in control. Yeah, like the how am I supposed to do that's from Chris Voss as well. The unconscious may regulate intelligence, which is entirely based on memory. Oh yeah. So this was really interesting because they said, how come all students are exposed to the same lesson in a classroom, yet some are considered more intelligent than others, and others are considered like dumber than others, right? And then if you notice, it all has to do with memory, which is regulated by the unconscious, because the unconscious is basically what allows you to remember or not certain things. So then, in reality, the unconscious regulates what we know of as intelligence, which is really just how good your memory is, right? Another thing that I read about the unconscious, or I saw somewhere, is that your peripheral vision, so like what you see on the sides that you're not actually paying attention to, that's also controlled by your unconscious, right? So that's pretty interesting. Language could have developed to deceive. Oh yeah, I think all these ideas are from that subliminal book, Subliminal Seduction. But they say that just like we started with, maybe language was made to strip away the things. Maybe it was really made to hide things, right? Because we limit ourselves to the words or to the word, and we say it's just that. But in reality, there's more to this reality than just the words, right? But then the words make up our reality to a certain extent. And then it says prices, customers versus wages, employees. I thought this was interesting because a lot of times we say, well, you need to reduce the prices of things. But if you reduce the prices, you're also going to reduce the wages of the employees. And when I don't remember how this worked out. I think this is in an administration book I was reading. But if the prices increase, like for the customers, the wages of the employees also increase. But here there's like an arrow up and an arrow down. I don't remember how this goes, but I found this to be interesting too. And here it says, seducin, temeroso en tu dureza y ansioso por mantenerse suave. Oh yeah, how to be seductive. Um, it says you need to be afraid of your hardness and anxious for trying to keep yourself soft. Not sure what that means. Okay. And it says this one, which I wrote recently, the mission of the magician is to transform that which is ordinary into that which is extraordinary, right? So it's all about the trick, and this is based on the archetype of the magician, which is actually for transformation. Okay. I also told you guys I was going to show you what this thing up here was about. So this is just basically a circle, and I have like all of the angles drawn down because I think it's very interesting to see like the circle, right? It's 360 degrees, and if you divide it into fourths, you'll get 90-degree angles, right? But the 90-degree angles are also like this. And half is 180, and then you got like the 45, the 135, 225, and the 315. But then you also have the clock, right? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 p.m. 6 p.m. is 180 degrees. And I just thought how it's interesting how we have a 24-hour clock, but a circle is only 12 hours, so we need two circles to make a day, right? But there's a lot of there's this idea out there on that whole 360 60 12, right? Like we have 12 months, we have 12 hours in a day. If you multiply it by 2, we have 24 hours, right? Well, we don't have 12 hours in a day, we have 24 hours in a day, but half a day is 12, right? What else? We have 60 minutes, we have 60 seconds, right? We have 60 seconds in a minute, we have 60 minutes in an hour. We have, what else? I think it doesn't account for like the week because the week is 7 days, nor does it account for the month because the month varies. But I don't know if they were trying to get maybe to 360 days, but because we have 364 or 365 days in a year. But yeah, just the whole circle thing is kind of interesting. So I have a couple over here. I think one that I thought was interesting is this one that says indoctrinate, manipulate, re-educate, educate, discipline, instruct, teach, mold, convince, persuade, brainwash. And all of those things, if you really think about it, are the same thing, which is the transformation of the magician. We have, well, the idea over there is also from Chris Voss. How can I achieve that? Repeat the three words at the end. We need God, not because we're bad, but in order to be good, right? And yeah, I'm a believer, so I have that quote right there too. I actually have one here. I have a little thing of like God and ask not what the meaning of life. No, I don't know what that one is, but Mm, never use but, use and instead of but, and the power of no, right? Like, so getting people to say no when you request for something, right? Like if you, like you say, is it ridiculous to think that you can let me borrow your pen? And they would say no, like take it, right? So that's like also from Chris Voss, persuasion tactic. Tony Robbins needs, which I've talked about him a lot, certainty, uncertainty, significance, love, growth, and contribution. And just a couple other things like to help you out. Like when you're anxious, ask yourself, is it true? Why? Is it helping me to think about it right now? When or with whom would it help me? And what would I tell a loved one who was having uh, the same thought or problem? Being is more profound than meaning. Look inside now. And what does, oh yeah, and the non-duality. I didn't look up non-duality anymore, but yeah, non-duality is supposed to be that like union between like your forces inside of you, and so you find peace. Kairos time, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under. So Kairos time has to do, I think there are like three different types of time. There's like the clock time that we know of, which I was just like talking about, like it's 3 p.m. or whatever. And then there's Kairos time, which is like when a tree or when a flower blooms or something, right? Or when a baby's born, which is like the time that is kind of like unpredictable, but when things just happen. And there's a third time, but I don't remember it right now. And then this one from the movie Triple R, which says you have the right to work but not to expect results, right? And I also have Tony Robbins meta programs, which are pretty cool, which in this case those talk about, or those tell you um, how to connect and synchronize with people, because there are, for example, there are people that talk about internal things or external things. There are people that move because of pleasure or because they want to avoid pain. There are people that always talk about themselves or others. There are people that always look for agreement or for disagreement, right? There are people that will talk to you with specific data, with specific details, or more general panorama generalizations. There are people that will talk to you with the beginning of things or with the ends. There are people that will classify or talk about something with food, right? Like I think Tony Robbins says this in his book, Unlimited Power. Like if you ask the person like, "How was the wedding?" and they'll say, "Oh, they served this, and then they served some rice, and then we ate some meat, and then later there were drinks." Or they'll talk about the people, you know, like Aunt May came or whatever. Or they'll talk about the activities, like, well, first we ate, and then we danced, and then, you know, so by knowing that, or there are people that will speak more emotionally, there are people that will speak more rationally, there are people that will speak more independently, interdependently, or dependently. There are people that will speak about what they have to do, and there are people that will speak about what they wish to do. There are people that base themselves on necessities, and there are people that base themselves on possibilities, right? So yeah, knowing all of this helps you to basically, you know, get in that person's level and be able to effectively like communicate with them, right? And you have to be watching out for these things, because when you hear them, then you can say, oh, that person, you know, I can talk to them like this, and they'll understand me, and we'll be able to understand each other, right? So it's kind of like the magician archetype too, I guess, type of skills. um, so yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little tour of like just the things that I have here in my workplace. I guess that's all for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.